Good afternoon once again, book lovers of the internet. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Book Nerd 802, and as you may know, I have been looking for recommendations pertaining to the Christmas spirit and the festive season. And of course, I came across this book by Max Porter called Grief is the Thing with Feathers, which I finished reading yesterday. This one consists of about 120 pages, and I rated a 3 out of 5 stars. Now, the version which I do own, there isn't this copy on Goodreads, so I had to go with another copy altogether, and I bought this one from the Waterstones outlet in Chester during my trip to Wales last summer, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I certainly expected better, considering that this came with about 6 pages of praise towards the beginning, and I am not even exaggerating. If you take a look at the first couple of pages, it's completely filled with praise, which is something which I very much dislike in any given book, by the way. It's something which I totally loathe when there is so much praise towards the beginning of a book. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I haven't even started reading the book yet. Why do you need to give me so much praise about the book? At least publishers put it towards the end. But anyway, since Christmas is less than a month away, I thought it would be the perfect book to read in order to get into the Christmas spirit. This one was published about 10 years ago and reminded me of both A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness because of the theme of losing a mother or a wife, as well as Nanny McPhee because the crow wouldn't leave until the grieving period was over. Very similar concept to the way Nanny McPhee works, and I can't say that this one blew my mind or explored grief in a way which I am not already accustomed with, but I can say that it was a relatively quick read, and that in a few words it expresses what it's like for a family to suddenly wind up without a mother, I guess. And some people might say that it's written in a poetic kind of form. I suppose I agree to it to a certain extent. It basically just deals with a father, what appears to be an imaginary crow, and two boys who are twins, and the story is told from the perspective of these characters, and it is relevant to say that the perspectives switch very often, sometimes multiple times on a single page, and during parts the characters are in conversation with one another. During others, we see the book take on an epistolary format as letters are written to the deceased in order to better deal with grief. So yeah, needless to say, we all deal differently with grief, and the crow was just there to help make the process come across as more light-hearted. And ultimately, we find out that the crow was apparently in the dad's head all along. It wasn't there physically, it was just a concept. The father is a very metaphorical, poetic kind of person, and yeah, I mean, what the bird's purpose came across as was to confuse me and introduce me to a bunch of words, made up words, needless to say, which seemed disjointed and unnecessary. And yeah, I honestly didn't quite like the perspective of the crow himself, or itself rather. What I enjoyed about this, why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, not less, was how there seemed to be no boundaries whatsoever, and all the characters were allowed to be themselves without any pretentiousness or order, considering what they have just gone through, so they can fully express what they are like without all the formalities. And losing a wife or a mother is, of course, an experience which many go through, and it's never pretty. And the father is a fan of poetry, and the crow, to my knowledge, at least the way I interpreted it, the crow likely served as an analogy for how he managed to deal with the situation once his wife passed on. And I don't think I've ever read anything as beautiful as how the John Wick franchise portrays the loss of a loved one, and how a character would do anything just to hold on to that person's presence or memory. The John Wick franchise definitely does it best, what with the revenge being involved as well. But yeah, this one definitely did not live up to my expectations, and I have yet to come across something so perfect as was the John Wick franchise as far as grieving is concerned. And considering that grief forms part of the title, I was hoping for way more, especially since I love the theme of grief and how people deal with it, since It's a completely human emotion, and we all deal with it differently. It's always interesting to see it from different perspectives. But yeah, this one did not live up to my expectations. It did not really teach me anything new. And I'm not that much of a knowledgeable guy as far as Ted Hughes is concerned. I studied a couple of his poems for an exam a few years ago, but not enough to fully appreciate his value in this. I wouldn't call it a poetry collection, in this book, rather, because the father is a big fan of Ted Hughes, to my knowledge. Um, in fact, if I remember correctly, he is described as a Ted Hughes scholar and a scruffy romantic. But yeah, I wasn't knowledgeable enough to fully value the presence of Ted Hughes in this story, and I wasn't particularly a fan of the way it was written either, but I was glad to see that the characters ultimately realized that they still had each other to cope with the loss of the loved one, and did what they used to whilst the family member was still alive, in order to keep the memory of the person alive and make grieving that much easier for everybody. For instance, bullying their father much like they used to when the mum was alive, or trying to bully their father in the same way the mum would, in a bit of a joking way, just pulling each other's legs, just to make the grieving process that much easier. But I think that is all I had to say about Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. I spoke with another person about this, and he did not enjoy it much either. Shout out to Malcolm if you're watching. Um, but yeah, that is all I had to say about this. The first book I've ever read by Max Porter, perhaps the last as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. Take a look at the rest of my content because why not? It's absolutely amazing. And I'll see you in the next one, hopefully very, very soon. Bye, guys.